All right, my name is Rich Schmidt. We're here with Ariel Daly. We're at Adelsheim Vineyard in Newberg, and it is June 26, 2024. Ariel, thank you so much for joining us today.
Absolutely, you're welcome.
First question.
Thank you for joining me at my...
At your house. I love this. First question for you is why wine?
Because it's awesome, takes you places. Look how beautiful it is. I mean, why wine? Makes everything better.
Tell me about your kind of life before wine. Tell me about where you were born and raised and your kind of early life.
I was born in San Jose, California, to a wonderful mother and father. And I lived there till I was 13. Then we moved to Nevada County, which is like halfway between Sacramento and Lake Tahoe, Sierra Foothills area with a big winding river through it. So I got to spend summers diving into cold waters from Sierra runoff and huge granite boulders, everything like that. But Nevada County has an old gold mining history and hydraulic mining history. So a lot of beautiful nature out there. I mean, we grew up boating a lot, and my father works in the ski industry as an electrical engineer. So grew up skiing and ski racing. He still works in the ski industry, and sorry, this is supposed to be about wine. I'll start talking about skiing real fast.
Skiing is just fine. Tell me about kind of life after high school.
So my life until about, I don't know, 7 years ago was like all focused on a very different direction. I was a theater nerd. I was completely in love with music theater, and there was a point, in my high school career, because I also really loved cooking and skiing, and I was like, do I want to be a ski bum and like work in a restaurant, or do I want to like try and do theater and do this other thing? And I said, yeah, okay, that's what I'm going to do. I want to play pretend. And I committed my whole everything to just like this love of theatrical arts and performing and all of it. I was wildly in love, specifically with music theater, because I loved dancing, I loved singing. I still do. And so I went through high school in theater, and then I went to college for theater, and that was in first back in San Jose, and then I transferred to Wichita State University and completed my undergraduate for music theater there and earned a grant, moved to New York City, well, technically to Queens, and lived there for 8 years. So it was a very different path, but the whole time I was working in restaurants all through school, all through everything, my career as a performer in New York and all of that. And that's how I got introduced to wine, really. I mean, other than just, sharing a glass or two with friends after shows and things like that, but learning how wine pairs with food and how to sell it. And working in New York, I was working in some really nice restaurants that had beautiful wine programs, international wine programs, where it was like, oh, I kind of got a pretty diverse and thorough education from that, just as a means of making money, right? And at a lot of those restaurants, they bring in educators, they bring in reps to help you learn, and makes you a better salesperson. So tried to embrace that, and doing shows, you leave your jobs, and I fell in love with someone who fully dove into a wine career, and then I got to learn with him. And he was actually the person who encouraged me to pursue vineyard work in vineyard management. He was like, I have a feeling you would be really good at this. And at the time, I didn't know even what that meant. I was like, I don't even know what that means. Like, what are you trying to say? Because, dude, I assumed you were going to, I thought he would see more of like a winemaker, but since I love plants and since I love growing things and working, and I'm a very logistics-minded person, he knew what that meant before I did, and that relationship ended, but I threw myself into that work, and here we are.
What an interesting path. Well, before we get to wine, then let's talk about your first career, because that sounds really interesting. Tell me about, you get to New York, tell me about the sort of the highlights and lowlights of the career there.
Living in New York is like having Stockholm syndrome. you wanna leave, but every time you do, it's like, oh, it was so beautiful. It was so great. I loved it. Like, it's so romantic when you're not suffering with it. And it took a long time to love being there. But I lived in the same apartment for almost 8 years. And I was in a third floor, 3-story, like pre-war building with 10-foot ceilings and original hardwood floors, no closets, like radiators, no air conditioning, and I loved it. And I loved it. I had a Peruvian neighbor and lived above this Greek hairdresser who had like the best stories of setting women's hair and how like she would set opera singers' hair before they went in to go give their concerts. And the maintenance guy was this Greek guy, and he was so grouchy. He was like, it was amazing. It was amazing. And I had this fire escape that I treated as my, porch or balcony or whatever. So I'd sit out there and watch people go by because it was right on the corner. So you could see a little beer hall over there. You could see another restaurant over there. You could watch a million people almost get hit, every day because nobody wanted to obey the stop signs. And there's always something going. And I loved it there. I'm a kind of a homebody. I don't love moving for as many times as I've done it. I like being planted somewhere, and that became my home. I have lived a lot of different places and gone to school and met a lot of friends, and that they all kind of came together there. It was a 3-bedroom apartment, so I had a lot of different roommates from a lot of different parts of my life over the years, and everyone I knew really at the time was focused on theater, so where do you go? It's kind of like a mecca for that, and you could always see someone, and it was like, some of my favorite memories are from when people from different parts of my life would all end up in the same room or at the same meal, sharing a bottle of wine or whatever. Those were pretty amazing moments for me, and the art, the culture, the food, there's like a shift that has to happen where you're either like suffering and nothing is happening and nothing is working out, or you realize like, I'm comfortable, I'm used to it, and every second of my free time is like the best in the world because everything here is the best from the world.
What about the professional part of your life then? Or what roles did you land? What was the kind of the path for that?
Oh my gosh. So I would work a lot in California actually. So before we left, I did book a show in New York, and I was like, hooray, I did it, that's great. But I was part of a dance company while I was there, a contemporary dance company, and then at Sierra Repertory Theater, I was in Joseph and the Amazing Technicolor Dreamcoat as Mrs. Potiphar, or Potiphar's wife, and then one of the main gals, but not Joseph. There was a great show called Beehive the 60s musical where I got to play Janis Joplin, and that was like a dream come true. In the Bay Area in California, I was doing shows like Rock of Ages and Anything Goes as one of the, the muses, I think. No, what are they? The Angels. West Side Story a few times, surprisingly, as Anita once. If you can believe that. But primarily as one of the white girls. And I've done Oklahoma as Dream Lori. The last show I did in New York was Saturday Night Fever. And that was a really cool role. It was for an off-Broadway theater, and I got to be a swing. So I'd auditioned for the show. I didn't get it. And then they called me. They're like, somebody got a new contract. Actors have to keep finding your next job. And one of the gals who'd booked the show was going to take another contract and leave. So they called me and they're like, we need to hire you as a swing. And that meant that I came in, learned the show by myself, and learned all the staging from like a couple rehearsals. I learned all of the choreography off video. And, you have to flip it because they take a video from the front, but you have to know how to reverse everything that you're watching. And then I got to go on for like 3 weeks. It was great. It was amazing. And I had to cover all of the female roles, but I performed as primarily ensemble and in all the dance numbers and everything. So that was really great. I was really thrilled with that gig. You have to know how to learn. You have to know how to like cover all your bases and be very, very efficient. So it was really awesome, and I was really proud of myself for being able to do that. And like, I'd done choreography work and knew I was good at, and worked as a director for primarily in school and things. Like I knew I was good at directing, and I had an artist grant in San Francisco where I choreographed dance pieces one summer, and I knew I was good at those kinds of things, but then to really like put them all together and find that new like valuable skill and throw that on my resume and everything too. I'm still proud of that, clearly. And surprisingly enough, it is also kind of, I realized it's why I'm good at this. And it actually translates really well to vineyard management. It's still just knowing all the moving pieces, how they rotate, what comes next, what just happened. And like when you're on stage and things get left in the wrong place or someone exits in the wrong, you have to know how to fix things really quickly so that you can still end up where it needs to go. But being able to make those changes on the fly and maintain all those moving pieces while they spin independently is something I learned from theater.
So you mentioned obviously learning wine kind of simultaneously to all of this as you were selling it. Tell me about your education process for wine. What was interesting to you about learning wine, and what were sort of the key takeaways from that point in your life when it comes to wine?
I like to find the wines that paired with the dishes first, and then sell it like that. Where I was like, oh, I love this Moscofilero, right? And with this tagine or whatever. So it started there of just learning flavors, and then aromas, and trying to remember what went well with the other. I learned a lot from just tasting and being part of, my previous partner's education, his experience, he brought home a lot, right? He was extremely passionate about wine, more so than me. And I was always in awe of it. So it was very generous, and I would help at portfolio tastings. You know, I filled the shop that he worked at with plants and kind of maintained that, and I would help lead the tastings on the weekends, and I would, you know, they would have a nice lineup every week, and I'd do my research and kind of just learn by, I guess, rote. You know what you know how it is when if you're doing a tasting, any kind of tasting, you have to memorize your bullet points, and then you say it for 4 hours, and then you never forget it, right? And that's how I learned it, for wine at least. And when I got to Oregon, well, I guess I should back up, because before I left, or when I left New York, I had the opportunity to travel across the country and visit a bunch of vineyards and historic, like pre-prohibition vineyards. And so seeing those places too, and getting to talk to people and meet winemakers and have those experiences like that also influenced me a lot and taught me a lot. And when I got here, it was the brink of the pandemic, and during the pandemic I realized I didn't come to Oregon to not do something, and I was so determined to get involved because I only knew winemakers, I didn't know any growers, but I really wanted to be in the vineyards. So I found the Chemeketa program, and they have a vineyard on site, and I felt so grateful, because there's been so many times where I've seen programs in my life where it's like, oh, this is great, this is exactly what I wanted to do, but I needed to apply 6 months ago, right? And this was like one of the first times I felt like I was ahead of it. I was like, hooray, I have enough time, I'm months ahead, and it's gonna work out. I just had a lot of faith in it. I felt like there were good signs from the beginning. And there were plenty of wine education classes for those certificate and degree programs. You had to go through all of those. That kept it going, and I think that's how I learned wine. I just kept tasting it.
What prompted you to come out this way?
Well, I told you it's like Stockholm Syndrome in New York, and I had decided, so living in New York, being an actor, you are always looking for a new job. You have to love being told no. You have to love not working. So you have your backup job as your main job, and it's very unsatisfying for your artistic spirit and soul. and when you do get the yeses, like sometimes they just keep coming, and all of my yeses were coming from California. Like I was like 2 years straight, and I had planned to leave because I was like, I want to lean in. I've made really great connections with these theaters that keep hiring me back. Like I had an artist residency, I was offered a teaching position in San Francisco, all these things, it was a lot of momentum. And I had planned to move, and I went back to New York to move and changed my mind the next day. I was like, well, I had all this great success in California, like I just have to focus it and like bring it over here, you know, and it didn't really work that way. So I just wasn't working, and I wanted to be able to do theater like on the side and not depend on it, right? And not have to upend my life every time I did get a job. Because like the other thing about getting the yeses, it's when you don't want them, it's when you don't need them, and you're like, I got everything good. I'm good. Like, I've got a good routine. I'm making good money. Everything feels easy. I don't know if I even want to do a job. And of course, it's the best contract you've ever been offered. And then you have to pull it all apart. Everything that's working, suddenly you have to say, oops, just kidding. I don't want this anymore. And then you come back after like 3 months and you have to start all over. And it can really suck. I was tired of it. And I'm like, I want the opposite. I want like I told you, I'm a homebody. I want to be grounded somewhere. It's like I'd rather live somewhere and just do this on the side and not depend on it and be able to give more freely than be worried that you can't get your health insurance or worried that you know, aren't going to get paid enough. Or it's supposed to be a beautiful thing. It's art. It's creative energy and joy, and you're performing to give other people joy. So if I don't know, it felt wrong, and I wanted to shift that so that when I do it again, it's because I can and because I want to give that, not be expecting something from this artistic process. So why did I move? Because I wanted that, and this was close and also far enough away from my family in California. It seemed nice. I'd never been here before. I thought I'd give it a go, and so I stayed.
Tell me about your first impressions of Oregon and the first things you did once you got here.
First things I did, well, I moved to Portland, and gosh, I worked in a tasting room in Dundee for a little while, did that commute even through into September of the pandemic. It was not good. It wasn't good for anybody, right? But it was really not good being so far away from family and being in a neighborhood that wasn't the most peaceful, and everyone was so stressed out and anxious. And we moved again, and that was better-ish. It was very difficult. I don't know. I don't remember it much anymore. I think I blocked a lot. I think it was trauma.
Not the first time I've heard that.
The story of me moving here is very much a story of the end of my relationship with someone, and to a certain degree, because then it kind of inspired. I used all of this work and opportunity in this industry to kind of rehabilitate myself. I was really devastated, and sometimes this is the first time I felt sad about it, actually, in a long time. So I don't know, maybe I should not talk about it, but it was really, really devastating for me, and I got very sick. I got COVID, and then I got blood clots, and then I got shingles. All coming out of a separation. I had to pull my life out of a life that I shared, and I didn't have any family here. And I chose to commit to this because I saw a lot of potential, and I had just spent a year committing myself to it with school and with work, and I didn't want to leave it, but I had a lot of conversations with my parents where they're like, does this even make you happy? Like, just because somebody else told you that you'd be good at it, like, are you sure you're happy there? You don't know anyone? Like, are you going to make any money doing this? Why are you doing it? But my dad, and I remember this phone call very vividly because I was crying in the rain, taking pruning weights in like January. It must have been like February, but it was raining and I was crying, and my dad's like, are you sure you want to do this? Like, do you even like this? Are you happy? Like, I am so unhappy. I can't tell you if I like it or not, or if it makes me happy. I can't tell you that right now, but it's something that I'm halfway done with, and I'm not going to stop yet. I refused to stop. It was kind of like my only lifeline to feel like I had any kind of a foundation, and I didn't want to go home. So I kept going to school and kept going to my vineyard management vit tech job every day, taking pruning weights in the rain, and suffering through all these different health issues, and then got to the other side.
Tell me about the Chemeketa program. How did you find out about it? And tell me about getting started in it. What was the program like?
I can't say enough good things about that program, honestly. I found it just Googling. I was curious. I had this idea, and I'm like, somewhere in 2020 of like, I need to do something. Maybe I could take classes. My dad is really an advocate for community college, and I went to a really good community college in California before I transferred university, and it's so technical. It's so applicable. Like, applicable is the word, but they teach you what you need to be able to go and do it immediately. That's the whole concept of community college, right? In a nutshell. So I Googled it, and then I started asking people about it, and they were like, yeah, it's really good. There's a lot of people from the industry who came out of that. And I'm like, okay. And I just went for it. It's like, I'm going, here I go. And started with the vineyard management series classes, and I just kind of went through it for the certificate program. I was like, I'm going to do this in a year or whatever. But I was working too, so took maybe a year and a half. And I got to drive the tractor, and I got to walk into a vineyard and learn how to prune in the first month, or the first class maybe. You know, Brian Berenger is one of the best people you can ever talk to, period. And I feel really lucky that all of the people I took those courses with were actually really motivated. They all cared. We were all like super nerds and really passionate. There were a few of other people that had moved from out of state that were also in that. There were just a lot of good personalities and people who were really serious about it. And it wasn't like competitive. It just kept everybody interested. Like, everyone was always there and attentive, and we all like did our internships over the summers, and then would meet up at the end of the day and like get a beer and just talk about how hot it was or how stupid it was that we're counting clusters and, you know, things like that. And we're all grown adults, right? This isn't like, I'm 19 and you know, whatever. This is like grown people. So a little bit of the commisery, but crazy love and interest in it. And like I said, I felt really well led in those courses. They're laid out really well, and they give you everything you need to know for Oregon. Like, when I have conversations with my parents, why don't you just come grow grapes in California? Why won't I'm like, I don't know California pests. Like, I'm specialized in Oregon, and that has helped me tremendously with everything. I mentioned these internships. You know, I started with a vineyard management company as a viticulture technician. So what was great about that experience with school was I'd learn a week in advance, basically, exactly what I was going to have to go do for work for the next month and then like perfect it. But management companies, you run the gamut when it comes to farming styles. So starting there and then, working my way into permanent positions with the management company, I really got to see a lot and get immersed in it in a really dense way that that I find really valuable. I do value it a lot.
You mentioned not having, when the idea of vineyard management was first brought up, not really knowing what that meant or anything like that. So tell me about your initial impressions of the work, of the job. What did you think of vineyard work, vineyard management, when you first started doing it?
I thought it was so awesome. I still think it's so awesome. Oh, man. So I learned what that meant at school, right? And learning with Brian how to care for these plants. Okay, so there's that version of looking at it. How the logistics of what they need and how to give them what they need. And then there's the logistics of everything else. Because there's so much work that we put into the grass here that it's like grass management. It's not really vineyard management. There's a lot of equipment, and that's interesting. There's like every bit of the industry, everything has its own industry. Grass seed, the tractor, your trellis parts, your glass, your cork, your anything, your roots, any part, singular element of the wine industry has its own industry, and it's amazing how big it is when you think about it at that level. Vineyard management is amazing because the people who really make it happen are so in love with the lifestyle and so committed to the quality of their farming, and it's their lifestyle. They're up every day. At 4:30 in the morning, they're here, they're there every day. They know that the plant doesn't get a break, doesn't sleep in, doesn't do whatever. Like, they have this incredible commitment, and you have to really know how to turn it on when it's go time, because you get it or you don't, and have enough energy or know how to pace yourself in a way to have the most energy right at the end, right? When you got to condense it all for your picks and getting it across the finish line through the winery door, because that's the whole goal. Off the vine.
You mentioned with your internship being able to see the full spectrum of sizes and styles and everything of vineyard. Tell me about starting to sort of differentiate those in your mind and perhaps finding your preference.
Well, I got to take classes on like biodynamics, and there are so many different styles, and I am lucky here that I don't have to choose. I'm just told what we're doing. Okay, great. I love when I don't have to choose. There's the what would you do, Ariel, or there's, just go do what needs to be done within these frameworks. I love rules. I love having structure, so it's just like, oh, great, you're certified and I can and can't do this. Great, that makes my life easier. And it all comes down to logistics, honestly. Like, I don't love organic farming as much as I should because you have to spray more often. Like you're constantly having to spray, and it's a little bit harder, but it's the direction we should all be going in. I don't think I saw any like a trend to make me say, oh, I love this style of farming over that style of farming from our clients, from seeing them all. I just fell in love with sites where it was like, oh, I just love being here. And that, I think, went across them all. It was like, oh, when you're just in a good place, you can feel it. And there are so many good places, so many beautiful ranches up here in Oregon. And every day it was like, if you're having a bad moment, just stop and look out, and it'll go away.
So as you were finishing up time at Chemeketa, tell me about looking for the next thing, looking for the full-time thing.
Well, I signed on to be a tech I was offered a job at the end of my internship, thank goodness for me, because I wanted a job in the industry, and then I got one, and that was great. And then I had one to lean on when things were hard for me. But I was always in school and working. And then I decided to finish the 2-year degree. I was like, okay, I did that one, but I want to know more. I want to keep going. I want to do I really wanted to do that also. And that was hard because I was like, one of my roles as I was promoted within the vineyard management stuff, I became like a harvest coordinator for trucking logistics and deliveries and all of that across a lot of vineyards, right? But I was in school, so I was like in my soil science class texting, like coordinating at the same time. I'm like running out all the time to take these phone calls, and they're like, why are you in school? Or they're like, why are you here? Or, you know, everybody on both sides was like, what's wrong with you? Because like one summer, this was nuts, because I was finishing at Chemeketa, I was working for the Skinkis lab at OSU, and I was full-time as assistant viticulturist. So I was doing a lot, and and then harvest started, and I was still doing it, and like I just like to work and do things, and I really love all this stuff, and there's something about it that like gives me momentum or something. And sometimes maybe I get stressed out. I felt a lot of like gravitas and things like that, but I didn't leave my vineyard management job until I saw something really, really awesome. Because I was a viticulturist and in that role, and there wasn't really an opportunity for me to spread my wings and be a manager. And then I saw one, and then I got one. So I feel really, really, really fortunate. And I'm still very much like deep in it. It hasn't really gone away. I've just eliminated some of the directions so that it's all focused on these vineyards. And putting the viticulture and the management stuff together in practice.
So let's talk about that. Let's talk about coming here. What was the role what about the role attracted you? What was exciting about here?
The amazing historic vines. I always really enjoyed working with older vineyards and the potential. I really like the idea of, I've always wanted to work at an estate winery because I started with the wine and the fact that you can influence that and work together and then get to taste the thing that you grew and you know exactly where it came from and have that through line and really get to see the finished product. I've always really wanted that. Some of the vineyards we managed had that, but most of them were just standalone, right? And then you learn where the fruit goes and where it came from, and that's exciting too. But the straight shot for this seemed pretty awesome. I love this AVA. This is a beautiful, beautiful area. And I needed to try something else. I needed to see, it was like, what's the harm in trying? This is what I said I want to do. And now I get to. Something I'm really impressed by here are the vineyard team that I get to direct, because they've worked here from anywhere between 15 and 30 years. I get to learn from them, and they say that they're learning from me, I don't know. But it's incredible to work with people who know vineyards that well and have been here and seen it and seen the changes and remember the things that didn't work or did work and have paid attention, right? Because I haven't been here a year, but they've been here so long, and I can go to them, and of course there's plenty of records and documentation of things, but they were in the field, they were there, they were in the field. It's not like data from a weather station or, where you can extrapolate. People who really spend the time and know the vineyard like that is invaluable.
So you mentioned the leap from viticulture to vineyard management. It's a big leap there. So tell me about coming into that role. What did it mean to you, and what did you need to do? What did you need to get better at?
So viticulture is a tool in vineyard management's toolbox, right? And they have people who are pure viticulturists. I'm so lucky, period. But the fact that I've gotten to start in that community and be part of all those VitTech meetings and go to all of these, events, and the Grape Day and the other one that's every year, be part of that conversation and know who has the answers and who to call, because I don't know everything, but number one, what to look for, how to look for it, where and why, and know all of that is something I'm so grateful for, and that I think is I don't know, is awesome. My assistants, my crew tells me I'm a nerd, and then you talk to the viticulturists, they're like, you win! Like, okay, data is cool, let's talk about my spreadsheets. But and from doing the trucking logistics and from the harvest logistics and from the relationships I have with the other managers that I was working with, and from managing small blocks on my own, and I tried to maintain that. I wasn't disconnected from it because I'm so curious about it. I always wanted to do it. And now, okay, go do it. But the hard part is mostly just learning the equipment for me. And fortunately, I'm not paid to drive the tractor. And when I sit in the tractor, it doesn't register me. It doesn't think I'm there, so sometimes it turns the PTO off. It just won't start. I'm like, see, I'm not even supposed to be in the tractor. But there are times it feels like I skipped levels a little bit, you know? And because I have this crew, these people that are imperative and so vital to the success of these vineyards. So learning from them and learning with them, and I'm doing a lot of like documentation of how they're scheduling and kind of trying to learn still from them, but from a distance of like, let me watch what you're doing, right? I'm not going to tell you what to do. I'm going to watch, or we're going to have these conversations. We're going to work things out. It's my job to kind of fine tune, I think, what they're doing. Or like, let me just tweak it like this, and then, oh! Or sometimes they just are like, well, we've never done it this way, but I've always wanted to do it, or I've always wanted to give it a try. And it's like, well, let's try it. And then it works, you know, and I feel like it's little changes, if anything.
It's a big vineyard. I'm curious about getting to know it. What is your process for starting to learn the site, and what are you looking for?
So this is one of 8 vineyards. It's 173 acres. What I did first, you know, we were walking the vineyards. We would take tours, and they just kind of throw information at me as we walked. I was given printouts of like, here's some general bullet point ideas about different things. I would bring maps with me and write stuff down through all the walks, and I've put those in my most important binder. I have another notebook where I'm just constantly writing. You got to write things down all the time, where it's like every conversation, there's something I'm going to need to remember. And then from the back, I have my like 2020 hindsight things for like next year, remember this. But it's a lot of looking through old records, number one, to see what the history is. Viticulture, you document everything, right? If it's not documented, it didn't happen. But also for like our live compliance and everything like that, you have to know what was done, what you're doing. To be able to put fertilizer things out, you need to know what your your vines were carrying. For the winery, they have wine goals, and that's based on tonnage, and that affects our thinning later. It's just a lot of like looking at data, number one, walking the vineyards a lot, and asking questions.
Tell me about leading a team and managing a team.
It's great. I've always liked leading people. I love people, I like working with them. And I used to lead all of our technicians. So after I was a vit tech, then I became the leader of the vit techs. And it was great because I like doing all this because I've started at the bottom, and I think it's great when, like, if you're a restaurant manager, if you're any kind of manager, you should know every step of every position beneath you, so that you can support them and troubleshoot and help be efficient. You have to understand what they're doing to help them or create efficiencies or whatever like that. But I've not been a tractor driver, so I'm flawed. But I feel like these guys have really shown up, and I'm so grateful that whatever difference I'm making by being here and being on site and speaking Spanish with them as much as possible, little things like that make a difference. And I just try to show up and be there for them every day and just say I don't want people ever waiting on me so that they can work. You know what I mean? Sometimes I have to work longer. You have to do stuff on Saturdays. You have to do more so that they can all go. Like, you never want people waiting on you. Like, if I have to change the work order for the spray or whatever, like, I'll do it. If I have to go pick up the extra chemical at the last second or drop it off at the site so that you can start at 6 in the morning, which is kind of late, but you know what I mean? Like, if I have to stay here till 9 so that you can get that thing going, that's great. And that's whatever I can do to help. I'm here to support them. I am here to lead them. But as a general rule, I think you're just always supposed to slow down a little bit and take the extra time to think so that you can keep everybody safe. You know, you're there to lead them into situations that are safe for them, smart for them, and good for everyone.
What about the larger team, the whole Adelsheim team? Tell me about fitting in here and getting to know your new colleagues.
Everyone's wonderful. I think it's a pretty awesome opportunity that I've been given to, you know, when they brought me on, they were pretty candid that they want me to really facilitate a better relationship between the winery and the vineyard staff. I think maybe previously it had been pretty separated, and the goal is to be cohesive and work as a team and really embrace that, because there's strength in numbers. And to me, it's just like, great, this means I just get to talk to everybody, and everybody gets to talk to me, and we can all help each other. You know, everybody helped plant out the garden, and everybody's here to support each other. We were all here together for OPC this morning. Like, it is always important to acknowledge what everybody is doing to make the thing go, and it's lovely that they're looking at the vineyards with praise, and I get to look at what everyone else is doing to support all. It's great.
You mentioned being excited about working with old vines. Tell me about these vines a little bit, and what your experience has been like with them so far.
I mean, they're amazing. The older vines are over there and at some of the other ranches up the street, but I'm lucky again. I feel like the women who were managing these vineyards before did an incredible job, and we've had very good weather this season, surprisingly. I can't believe I just said that. But I mean, I didn't make them look this way. They've been really well managed for so long, and they're happy and they're healthy, and it shows. Like, I get to witness what is going on, because we have, I mean, you can really screw stuff up pretty fast, but what's going on just shows you, like, they're happy, they're healthy, and they've been well cared for. So I feel responsibility for sure. Like, keep giving it.
You mentioned still being pretty new to the role here. Tell me about what you're looking forward to for the next few years. What needs to be done? What do you want to do?
Depends on who you ask, but you're asking me. I want to look at pruning. I think there's a huge leap we can make with some changes in our pruning, but pruning is like the most important thing you could do, or you do during the season, and it sets up what happens, you know, the next 2 seasons essentially. And we're herbicide free, so looking at other options for under the vine as far as like different types of plant barriers we can put in to get that a little more maintained. Gosh, these are really boring answers. If like I need to get new equipment because there's just like, we've got some old, I call them the abuelos, the grandpas. We got some old tractors. We got some things where it's like we can move ahead. I don't want to be critical of anything. I know that there's a lot of interest in permanent cover crops, and we got to remember no-till doesn't mean never-till. So looking into those, and what I'm excited about is developing maybe more large pollinator habitats. We planted 40 white oaks, baby white oaks, and that was a project I inherited from the previous managers. And I was like, oh my God, they're so precious. And because like they are an endangered species and they're so sensitive to everything. And I was like, you just got these and you love it. And then it turned out, because my idea, okay, I'll like, we'll just take care of them over the summer. Just leave them in the pots, it's fine. Then it turned out they'd been received a year prior. So they already did that. I'm like, oh no, now I really got to get them in the ground. And we planted them out and they're, I think one died. Out of 40, that's like amazing, so. That's a thing, you know, developing more pollinator stuff and floofy thing, getting a new tractor.
It's very glamorous.
I know, I'm so sorry.
It doesn't have to be glamorous. I love it. It's a good answer. What about long term? What is the long term vision? What, either from that you were told or that you kind of see for yourself?
Long term vision. Okay, so it's a little opaque because David Adelsheim is no longer the owner, right? So it's a big shift for the company to have maybe new goals for the future, and of course honor and preserve the history. And there are some blocks that have high phylloxera presence that will need to be replaced and things like that, but we've got all these rootstock trials everywhere interspersed throughout the blocks to be able to make those decisions and potentially like use budwood maybe from some of the original vines if they're clean. Like me personally, I'm a preservationist and a little bit of a romantic like that, where it's like if we can not remove the old blocks, if we can preserve them, that would be best. But the sustainability and, you know, profitability is profitability is part of sustainability, and finding that throughout the vineyards and the business as a whole, I think, is the current goal.
So about the Oregon wine industry a little bit at a kind of a larger scale. Tell me about your initial impressions of the Oregon wine industry when you got here, and what, if any, changes have you seen?
I think it's amazing. Obviously. I love the history too, with like the 4 founding families showing up and not really having a full knowledge of what to do here independently. So they all had to work together to kind of get it up and running. And then that whole collective knowledge just sort of being the overarching like theme of the industry. Like it's very community driven, and from getting to know so many different people from the management background and learning all these clients and meeting new people and going to these events and being part of those conversations and having that share is so cool. I think it's the reason I've been able to learn so much, and the relationships that I made in school, and the people who have mentored me, they continue to, and it's wonderful. Rising tide. And I mean, like at those VidTech meetings, at the end of the year, they bring in the winemakers too. So it's not just like the vineyard perspective. There's finally these dialogues that occur across those winery boundaries, I guess. And it's such a jam. I think it's amazing that it's not like, no, I can't tell you. Like everybody wants to help each other, and it's pretty awesome.
Where do you see it going next? What does the future for Oregon wine look like?
Chardonnay all day. No.
That's pretty true, yeah.
No. Oh gosh, what does it look like?
Is there anything you're excited about or fearful of?
The lanternfly and the mealybug and the tika. Or there being some other weird red blotch vector that's way worse and doing something else that we haven't even thought about.
Nobody can do doom and gloom quite like a viticulturist.
Yeah. Oh, you know what would be way worse? Powdery mildew resistance to sulfur. That would be the worst. You know what I want to see are subsidization for organics. That would be cool. I'll manifest that.
We talked a little bit about kind of future here for you. Tell me about anything else personally, professionally you're looking ahead to. Any goals or projects on the horizon you're excited about?
It's like, ooh, my crop estimate. Let me show you my spreadsheet. Oh no. I'm excited to move closer to work because that will be a nicer commute. Projects, gosh, no. I mean, if I get to develop the pollinator stuff, that'd be pretty awesome. I think, you know, if I can change some stuff from needing to be mowed all the time to just getting to flower and do that, that'd be cool. That sounds like a beautiful thing. Most of these vineyards are pretty much planted out, and getting to know them is going to be really exciting. There's one block over here where there's a few blocks that have trunk disease, and they've started a trunk retraining project. But what's amazing is that the canopy, like the blocks look incredibly healthy. And, you know, we started this conversation like day one of me getting here where it's like, yep, we've got these new trunks that we're training, and then we've got the budget for the chainsaws, so they're all gonna go. Now I'm looking at it like maybe we won't have to. Like if the quality of the fruit is not being compromised and the canopies, I mean, they'll probably lose their canopy earlier, I think but I don't know. We might just cut the retraining off and let them be, because, like I said, I'm not eager to rip old historic blocks out if they're producing well.
Because you're a romantic.
A preservationist. I think also getting to learn more, just continuing to work with these guys, and my favorite thing is getting to say yes to them. Like, Ariel, we really need, and be like, I'm gonna get that for you. Like, and just, it's little things like that. Like, oh, you've never had an air conditioner in here? Like, you're gonna get one. It's little things that just make a big difference.
So last question for you. What's your biggest accomplishment? What's your proudest achievement?
I'm always really proud of myself when I finish school. You know, between finishing my my undergrad at university and then earning a grant and then finishing all the school. I mean, getting here is pretty awesome. I kind of have like pinch myself moments a lot because, I mean, my mom was like, it's not that I didn't think it was going to go anywhere, Ariel. But, you know, I'm pretty proud of this. And I can find little things. My harvest experience last fall was also something where it was probably the hardest thing I've ever done. And getting through it and the work I did for that is something I will always be really proud of. But I think the thing I'm most proud of hasn't happened yet. You know, I want to see how this goes, and if I can keep it going and get it to where I want, then I can tell you. But
It's fantastic. All the questions that I have for you. Anything I didn't ask that I should have, or anything that we didn't cover that you'd like to cover?
we didn't say hi to Elmo.
Elmo,
Come here.
you gonna be on camera, Elmo?
Yes. You have to be my number one. You didn't ask me who's my number one. Who's the most important? Here. How to really succeed in vineyard management is to have a good dog. Yeah.
Elmo, you're now famous.
That's it.
Fantastic. Thank you so much sharing your time, sharing this beautiful space with us, sharing Elmo with us.
Yes.
Elmo was at my feet for much of the interview, I would like to point out for the record, and also cuddling with everybody here. So,
Yes.
He let me rub his tummy.
so thank you so much, and we appreciate it. We'll let you off the hook.
Thank you.
Thank
That
you.
was fun.